Hello, good day. This is Roshell Dupisen, and for today's presentation, I will be discussing second language acquisition using the hypothesis presented by Stephen Krashen. Together, let us try to understand what and how second language acquisition works using this hypothesis. My presentation will start by opening our mind about the definition and simple context of the so-called second language acquisition. Next, I will introduce to you guys who is Stephen Krashen, followed by the enumeration of the 5 main hypotheses under the theory, and the last part is to finally conclude the discussion about the second language acquisition using this hypothesis of Krashen. What is second language acquisition? Second language acquisition is the process of acquiring a second language once first language acquisition is already established. Simply, an addition to our mother tongue or the native language that we have. It is also called second language learning. Who is Stephen Krashen? Stephen Krashen is an American linguist, researcher, an activist who specializes in theories of language acquisition and development. What are the 5 main hypotheses? The first hypothesis is the acquisition learning hypothesis, and this is the most fundamental among the other hypotheses. There are 2 means for internalizing a target language. Under here, and those are the acquisition and the learning. For a simpler notion, acquisition is referred to as the acquired system, while learning is known as the learned system. Under acquisition, here learner tends to construct a system of target language subconsciously. Here, we can notice an intuitive process, while on learning, learners are aware and they consciously figure out rules about the target language, and so a conscious learning process can be noticed. With this distinction, it is explained that deductive approach in teacher-centered setting produces learning, while inductive approach in student-centered setting leads to acquisition. The second hypothesis is the monitor, the practical result of the learned grammar. Acquisition system is the utterance initiator, while the learning system is the monitor or editor. When a second language learner has sufficient time at their disposal and they focus on forming and thinking about correctness by knowing the rule, the monitor takes place and acts in planning, editing, and correcting functions. Language learners have individual variation under the monitor. Overusers are the one who use it all the time over and over. Underusers are those who are not using their conscious knowledge. Optimal are those who use the monitor appropriately. The third one is the input hypothesis. Here, it's all about acquisition, excluding learning. The purpose of this hypothesis is to explain how second language acquisition takes place. It's how the learner acquires a second language, and so with this hypothesis, learner may receive a second language that is beyond the current stage of linguistic competence, and if this condition happens, the learner is improving along the natural order. It's like when acquisition takes place, then it means the learner is exposed to comprehensible input. But remember, not all learners have the same level of linguistic competence. This is why, under this hypothesis of Krashen, he suggests the natural communicative input, aiming to design a syllabus that will ensure the learners to still receive inputs that are appropriate on the current stage of linguistic competence that they have. This way, second language acquisition is still possible for the learner. The fourth is the affective filter hypothesis. It includes here the affective variables. Those are the motivation, self-confidence, anxiety, and personality traits. Regarding second language acquisition, the learners effectively equipped or acquire if they embodies high motivation, self-confidence, good self-image, low level of anxiety, and extroversion. However, if the learner is in contrast and they have the low level of these variables and embodies introversion and inhibition instead, then the affective filter will be raised that leads to mental block, which prevents comprehensible input needed for acquisition. To conclude, when the filter is up, it impedes language acquisition. Still, a positive effect is necessary but not sufficient on its own in order for the acquisition to take place. Indeed, affective variables have a facilitative but not causal role in acquiring a second language. The last hypothesis and the less important among the above mentioned is the natural order hypothesis. Here, the acquisition of grammatical structures follows a natural order which is predictable. It is based on research findings. Under natural order hypothesis, when a language is presented or given, probably some grammatical structures tend to be acquired early by some learners while others late. This order is independent of the learner's age, L1 or the first language background, conditions of exposure, and the agreement between individual acquirers. The implication of natural order hypothesis is not that a language program syllabus should be based on the order found in the studies. In fact, this hypothesis of Krashen believes that when the goal is language acquisition, the grammatical sequencing will be rejected. To sum it up, I understand that in Krashen's hypothesis, second language acquisition is significant for the reason that learners of language should be exposed to acquisition and learning and know the difference between them. It is also for the sake of the learners to learn faster as they are given more comprehensible input. The second language acquisition here in Krashen's hypothesis is to develop linguistic skills and other language processes to be administered to all language learners with respect to their level of linguistic competence. Additionally, the second language acquisition is known and considered as the brainchild of renowned linguist and researcher Stephen Krashen. His theory has a large impact in all areas of second language research and teaching, especially on how a second language is acquired. Here are my references. That's the end of my presentation. I hope it's an informative one. Thank you.